In the last couple of videos, we've been making a door with hinges. Right now this door behaves very realistically, but it would be nice for our players to have the door shut automatically. To do this, we're going to use two springs that are going to pull the door shut after it's been opened. Now a spring is another type of constraint. While a hinge forces two attachments together and lets them rotate, a spring creates a spring between two attachments. Now, like a real spring, if these attachments move far apart, they're going to be forced together, and if they move closer together, then they'll be pushed apart. We create a spring with the same tool we used to create the hinge. From the dropdown under Create, we'll select Spring. Then I'm going to click on the side of the door frame, then on the far side of the door. Now notice this creates a coil between the two attachments. Now if we run our game, this spring will try to keep these attachments this far apart and it'll apply forces if it moves. If we push on the door, spring's going to push it back, closing it. Now for this particular type of setup, it's best to use two springs, one on either side of the door to keep it closed, in case it's pushed in either direction. So I'm just going to use the spring tool again, make a new attachment on the frame, and connect it to the same attachment on the door as I did with the first spring. Keep in mind when working with joints that attachments can have any number of constraints connected to them. If you're making a new constraint and click on an attachment like we did here, Studio will automatically use that attachment we clicked on instead of making a new one. Now that I have my two springs, I want to configure them so that my door works a little bit better. I'm going to select both spring constraints in my Explorer by control-clicking both of them, so I can edit both of their values at once. In this case, I think I'm going to increase the stiffness a bit, which describes how strong the springs are, how much they can push. But along with this, I'm also going to increase the dampening, which is going to prevent the springs from pushing too fast. You'll find when working with springs that you're often going to have to tweak these numbers to account for the size of the parts you're working with. And one last thing, I'm also going to click the visible property here off so the springs don't show up in our game. We want them to behave, but we don't want the players to see them because that looks kind of weird. And there you have it. With just a hinge and two springs, we can make a swinging door in our game that automatically closes.